We're going to get started. Okay, I'm going to call our meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the Marlboro Township Board of Education. Today is Tuesday, February 18th. We had public notice that was sent out on this meeting, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But before I do so, I just want to point everyone to the agenda, to the Sunshine Law, that this meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that adequate notice of the date, the time, the agenda has been sent to the Asbury Park Press and to the Star Ledger, and has been posted as well and filed in the Marlboro Township Clerk's Office. I want a statement on public videotaping a public portion of the board meeting. You know, this is a public meeting. There is a portion of the board meeting that's actually videotaped and available for public viewing on our website. And then there will be opportunity for public comments on our agenda this evening. There will be two opportunities for public comment, both at the beginning after we return from our executive session, which is the first item on our agenda, and then after we entertain, as a board, the motion that's in front of us. So before we get started, one last thing: no smoking or vaping on school grounds. That includes both inside and outside. We appreciate your paying attention to that. May we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I think we need to take roll call.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Caravello, can I have a roll call, please?
Sure. Mrs. Palomo?
Here.
Mrs. Carrero?
Here.
Mrs. Gandhi?
Here.
Mr. Hyatt?
Here.
Mr. Lalansky?
Here.
Mrs. Mendez?
Here.
Dr. Miskowitz?
Here.
Mrs. Seward?
Here.
And Mr. Cohen?
Here. Thank you. All right. First item on our agenda tonight is an executive session resolution. Can I have a motion to move into executive session? Ms. Gandhi, second. Ms. Carrero, this will be for matters of attorney-client privilege, and we expect it to last no more than 45 minutes. Thank you. Everyone in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. We're just going to go into executive session. Thank you. Mr. Caravello, can you do a roll call, please?
Mrs. Belomo,
Here.
Mrs. Carrero,
Here.
Mrs. Gandhi,
Here.
Mr. Hyatt,
Here.
Mr. Olansky,
Here.
Mrs. Mendez,
Here.
Dr. Miskowitz,
Here.
Mrs. Seward,
Here.
and Mr. Cohen.
I'm here. Okay, thank you, everyone. Let me just go back to sort of, again, thanking you for attending this evening. As I mentioned earlier, this is a special meeting of the board. Today is February 18th, 2025. This meeting is was called pursuant to both our policies and the public notice requirements that we have. And I would like to also recognize the fact that the concept or idea for this meeting was actually suggested by Mr. Michael Olansky, a member of our board. Mr. Olansky actually contacted me the next morning to suggest this idea. And I want to put this into the context of when I was elected board president. One of the first things I did when I sat down in the seat is that I looked to Ms. Mendez and I looked to Mr. Olansky, and I asked them to sort of be a guiding principle to supporting the role of president, and they both agreed. And this is a classic, perfect example of Mr. Olansky offering suggestions and advice based upon his experience both as a prior vice president and prior board member and prior board president. So thank you for that. Once he suggested this to me, my next action was to immediately contact Mr. Caravello. I asked him to reach out to our board members to check their availability, which his office did. Thank you very much, Mr. Caravello, for doing that so quickly. And then, hence, we had a special meeting confirmed, and public notice steps began immediately thereafter. So that's how this meeting came to pass and how we're here this evening. So thank you for all of you who responded. We are here tonight pursuant to the policies to actually have one item of official board business, and that is a motion that's in front of the board regarding the abolishment of policy 5756. We will first go to public comments on our agenda, pursuant to our policies as well. Anyone who would like to speak will have 3 minutes to do so, and we will like to offer that to anyone who would like to come up to the mic. I know there's a sign-up list, so in a moment I'll turn to Mr. Caravello to do that. Once public comments are closed, we'll take an opportunity to sort of entertain the motion. We will then take an opportunity for discussion. Once discussion is closed, we will go into a vote, and at that time, board members will obviously, when they're placing their votes, they will also have an opportunity to sort of make a statement of anything they'd like to in regard to their vote. Once the motion the vote's concluded, we will then have an opportunity to do second round of public comments, and after the second round of public comments, if there's a need for an executive session, we will go into it. If not, we will adjourn. So that's how the meeting will play out tonight. I just want to share that with everyone so you all have some insight to how we will operate. So with that, I'm going to move us into public comments. Mr. Caravello?
Sure. First on my list, Jennifer Woodruff.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Woodruff, and I am from Morganville. And I want to thank all of you for all your time and efforts on this policy. I know you spent many, many hours over the last years, and the last year and a half were squashed because the state got involved and wouldn't let you try to do something that was well-intended on amending the policy. Most of you are already aware of my opposition. This is just a little odd.
There you go.
Does this work?
That's fine.
Most of you are already aware of my opposition to this policy, but there are some new board members, and so I would like to address my concerns. The 5756 policy allows teachers to withhold information and mislead parents regarding important matters regarding their children. Keeping parents in the dark about a student's mental health and behavior is detrimental to the child's well-being. When a school doesn't have open communication, the parents are hindered in providing the necessary guidance and support the child needs. I understand the intent of the policy is to protect a student's privacy, but this policy erodes the partnership between schools and families. It also serves to create a bigger wedge between the parent and child. During adolescence, a time when parents and children are already dealing with the typical growing up struggles and adhering to ground rules. The policy tells kids it's okay to keep secrets from your parents, but don't worry, you can trust us. Parents have the legal and moral responsibility of the child until they are no longer minors. And even upon adulthood, that love and care for that child never ceases. Proponents of this policy say that it protects children from abusive parents. New Jersey has a child welfare system and mandated reporter law that is designed to specifically identify children that may be subject to abuse or neglect and provide protective safeguards for this. The fact that the 5756 transgender policy does not have a guideline for determining which parents are notified and which ones are not, when a child wants to identify as a different gender, makes it ambiguous and is a lawsuit ready to happen. The 5756 policy is divisive and discriminatory. All children should be respected, but certain children should not have special rights at the expense of others. This policy puts teachers in a bad place, a position of deception, and it takes away the privacy rights of the other kids. I remember how modest I was having to dress in high school in the locker room with other girls. I cannot imagine how it would feel if a boy was in the room. School districts that have not okay. Darn.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for your decision to rescind the policy, which I believe is your intention, and I thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you, Ms. Woodruff, and thank you also for sharing your views with the board and your thoughtful email that you sent to us this past weekend, and we appreciate that. I know personally I appreciate hearing your thoughts, and both in person tonight, and for coming last week in that weather, so I appreciate you being here.
Sure. Next, Ron Mack.
Hello. My name is Ron Mack. I'm from Old Bridge, and I'm here encouraging you to rescind 5756. A lot's happened with this. The reasons at this point is there's a growing amount of pushback against this from what you'll never hear is detransitioning, which is where a child, which means they're minors, which is 95% of the students in this school, are coaxed into this and go into even surgeries where they're cutting off parts of their anatomy. And then as they reach adulthood, they realize, what the Sam Hill did I just do? And then they start suing people who were part of the instrumental in this. From a legal standpoint alone, Michael Gross, I think that it puts this school in enormous jeopardy 5 years down the road, 6 years down the road, and it opens a whole new Pandora's box that's never been here before as far as litigation. If you doubt that, Google 2 words, Chloe Cole. She spoke before Congress because she's a detransitioner, a word you won't hear in these meetings usually. The other reason is we have a new president, and he's spoken very boldly about this in the mutilation of children. And his executive orders are going to have already put having policy 5756 intact in direct violation of federal rules and federal funding. So vote against 5756. I applaud your courageousness we've watched you over a couple years now. You were in the forefront of things, and we appreciate your service here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Dan Finney.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. Congratulations again on prevailing, finally, against a stacked deck. Witnessing the litigation in court made clear to me that not all judges are fair and impartial. Without judges that actually follow the rule of law and Constitution, we are in real trouble. Since we get our judges through the process of elections in our constitutional republic, the importance of voting cannot be overstated. It is more than a privilege, it is a duty. I would sure think and expect you will now exercise your local authority to get rid of this unprecedented policy causing division, confusion, unintended consequences, and real harm. But I want to take a moment to point out this should also be an inflection point to look anew at your other policies and curriculum, some of which is chock full of socialist Marxist ideology, pushed down from the federal and state bureaucracies. By the way, there was no federal DOE when I went through school. Matter of fact, I wasn't even aware that it was different until recently. When I was going to school, we did get a great education that made us competitive in the world, and I'm thinking that there's going to be some great changes in this new administration. But I want to point out some examples of what I think all of our schools should be looking anew at, and that is things like critical race theory, social and emotional learning, social justice, diversity, equity, inclusion, and one you might surprise some people is climate change. And I want to touch on climate change and use it as an example of how easily people can be deceived. When lies are often repeated, they become socialized fact in the culture. So, CO2 is 1 atom of carbon and 2 atoms of oxygen. We breathe. That is a pretty good deal. We get 2 for 1. Plus, we get vegetative health and food. Yet, and I'm sure some of us remember learning about photosynthesis, but somehow it didn't translate into this climate change narrative. Yet we are being told CO2 is bad and that reducing what is already a trace gas in our atmosphere at just 0.40% in a very complex weather ecosystem can affect climate. I could talk about the fallacies and absurdities for hours. The global warming, which then morphed into climate change, hypothesis was dramatically shown to be false, as there has been zero correlation between higher levels of CO2 and global temperatures. The reason I bring this up, and then I'll close, is that it's being presented as science, and the #1 target is our children through the public education system who trust us to give them the truth. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Finney. Likewise, I want to thank you for sharing your thoughts with the board this past weekend, and for your thoughtfulness and the time you spent in sending that and writing it as well. So thank you. Mr. Garavella?
Sure. Alice Finney.
I'm just going to start with this. Hi, I'm Alice Finney, 5 Points Road in Colts Neck. I grew up in Monmouth County, lived here my whole life, in Homedale, pretty much. And I just commend your board for taking a stand against policy 5756. I've told my story before, but one that really just becomes more alive to me every time I hear about this is that when I was a child, say 8, started around 8, I used to want to dress like boys. And I remember running around as a kid without my shirt on until someone told us, me and my girlfriend, that we had to put them back on. I'm just saying that, and I would play with frogs. I played in sand. I played with dinosaurs. I didn't really play with the dolls. We were very active. I rode my bike. I climbed trees. I went fishing. I did all these things. And just to think at this young age, between sometimes kindergarten, this thought is introduced to these kids that, hey, you might not be a girl or you might not be a boy. Are you sure? What do you think that you are? Well, thank goodness my mother and father always told me I was a girl. I never thought different. But if I lived in today's time, I cannot think what would have happened to me, because I was very compliant. I listened to what adults and other people told me to do, and I really would have ruined my life. I mean, we don't allow kids to get tattoos or to drive or to drink or any of these things. And we need adults to stand there and to protect these children. And it's not about discrimination. We love these kids, and we need to have tough love with these kids. The kids that are having problems, there's no separation now between the suicide rate. They don't distinguish after transitioning, where people are affected by the transitioning. Chloe Cole says, I never had suicidal ideation or thoughts until after I went through her double mastectomy, until after they said, wow, what did I do? And studies show, 11 studies, including the Toronto 2021 study, shows that between 80 and 90%, and that study was 86%, of the children returned to their birth gender, identifying with their birth gender by 18. So we really need to not allow children to make decisions. So many kids are making the rules instead of their parents so many times. Well, I feel this way, and the parents are saying, oh, instead of taking a stand and saying, no, you're a girl or you're a boy, because you can't change that. You really can't. And sadly, the people who have tried to have been shadow banned from the internet, so we're not seeing that. But I just commend you all for taking a stand with the other 3 towns, the other 2 towns, Alton and Middletown, and that was really a wonderful thing. And I just thank you so much for your support to rescind this policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Finney, and thank you for sharing your personal experiences. I know the board probably, appreciates that as well. Mr. Caravello?
I have no more on my list. So if anybody else would like to speak.
Is there anyone else would like to come up?
Please just state your name and address. Thank you.
My name's Carolyn Mack, and my husband and I live in Old Bridge. I guess I just want to encourage you as board members and remind you that you are the gatekeepers for what comes into the school. As a parent, I'm a gatekeeper. We have 4 children and now 5 grandchildren, and as a parent, was part of my job was I was the gatekeeper for the books that would come into the house, the books that I would buy for them or not buy for them, the movies that we would allow them to see, the TV programs that we thought were healthy or not healthy. And you have an important job as a board member. You are deciding as gatekeepers what is healthy and good for the kids and to be part of the curriculum and what is not. And I just want to remind you that the 5756 and a lot of the reading material that's coming into schools right now has opened the doors wide to groomers. And this isn't an opinion, it is a fact. And like somebody else said just a little while ago, it's never a good idea to keep secrets from parents, and that is what 5756 does, which is another reason why I'm very much opposed to it. Also, I think just the reminder that 5756 encourages the idea that a child can change their gender. This is a contradiction of science. No one can change their gender. It doesn't matter how many hormones they receive or the body parts that get cut off. Their gender is not changed. And I think to encourage the lie that they can change their gender, I think it's a problem. And again, as the gatekeepers, you can decide whether or not this teaching comes into the school and is accepted, or if it's rejected. And I noticed as we came in, you have these character traits in the hallway: kindness, positivity, respect, responsibility. And as adults, I think we are either models of that, encouraging that, kindness, good citizenship. And I think some policies encourage those qualities that we want to see in our children, and some do not. And I don't think 5756 belongs in our schools. So I just want to encourage you to stand firm and vote to rescind it. I think you're on the right side of history if you do that. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for those important reminders, as well as for pointing out those really important messages that are on the walls of this building when we walk in. I appreciate that. Would you like?
Hi, my name's Jerry Monroy, Taylor Road in Marlboro. I want to look at this, the 5756, what it encourages is the double life. John becomes Jane when he goes to school. Parents don't know about it, and the parents are kept in the dark. And so what we're teaching the kid from a very early age is a very disordered notion, the notion of living a double life. Nothing could be more morally wrong than that. I certainly support the rescinding of 5756 because we do not want to engender this kind of morality in growing children who would then take that into an adult life whereby they would think, yeah, I can have a double life. You're going to have a person here and a person there doesn't know about the other. You know what I'm saying? A double life is intrinsically a disordered life. Please rescind 5756. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you for also sharing your views. We appreciate that. Is there anyone else? Without seeing anyone else want up, Mr. Pollack.
Try this. Good evening, everybody. My name's Adam Pollack. I live on St. Lawrence Way in Marlboro. So I am supportive of abolishing policy 5756. The reason I'm supportive is because of how divisive this policy has been for our town. I have two daughters that are that are students in the district, and I have family employed by the district. Unlike some of the people who are here and who have spoken, my family is interacting with school staff in our town all the time. We interact with the principals, the support staff, the teachers, the administrators, the security staff, the bus drivers, and the employees at the YMCA program. To all those people, people like Mr. Schatz, Mr. Pagliaro, Mr. Balone, Mrs. Tyrone, Mr. Bob, Mrs. Balava, Mr. Lavoy, Officer Ron, Mr. Seibert, Miss Bunny, all the teachers in the elementary schools, all the teachers in both middle schools, and every teacher my daughters have had over the last 5 years, I want to extend my family's deepest apologies. The insinuation that the staff in Marlboro is somehow keeping secrets from the parents and is doing anything that is not in the best interest and safety of the students that they support here is appalling. In my own experience with the staff in the district, I've never seen any reason to suggest that the teachers and the administrators in our town are doing anything that is not in the best interest of the students here. Teachers and administrators are not preventing information from being distributed to parents in Marlboro. Teachers and administrators are not putting students in situations where they are in bathrooms with other sexes inappropriately in Marlboro. These are lies used to scare and divide the community. The real problem is that these tactics are working. There are loud voices in our community and outside our community who do not want to have children in the district, who do not have children in the district, and who don't interact with the staff in our schools, who are using scare tactics to misrepresent what is happening in our district. In reality, the victims are the administrators and the teachers who who are maligned with false accusations around their intentions and the standards that are used to keep our children safe. For the teachers and administrators in our town who feel attacked by this insinuation that they are not doing everything that they can to keep our student body safe, or that the residents of our town think you are acting nefariously or keeping secrets from the parents here, know that there are parents in our community that don't feel that way and support you wholeheartedly. With all of that said, in the spirit of community, in the spirit of compromise, and the hope that putting 5756 behind us will allow this board to come together and focus on education, please abolish 5756. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pollack.
Mr. Cohen, can I address that for a moment?
Yes, sure, please.
I just wanted to say thank you, Mr. Pollack, for speaking. You're way back there, so I'm just looking this way. I just wanted to say one thing, since I was on the committee, or led the committee for the past 2 years, not this year, but in the past 2 years, and spent countless hours, weeks, months with some of the board members. I just want to say that policy exists across the state of New Jersey. It has been abolished now by many school districts, but at least from a policy standpoint, it was never implied in that policy by us when we were presenting it that it pertained to a particular teacher, or that a particular teacher here would do something like that. We fully support the teachers. What it states just in black and white in the policy is that across the state of New Jersey, in a school, there was the ability, if needed, to change the students' records and, if possible, keep it confidential from the parent. I don't want it to be implied that that was the nature of the policy, is that it was against the school district, the administration, who are wonderful here, or the staff. It's a policy in general that stated it could happen. Not saying it would. I just want to make that very clear, because that was never the intention, at least when that policy was modified. It was to make sure that we accept everybody for who they are, but in our district of minors of K through 8, we just wanted to make it clear that absolutely you should come as you are, and we love you and welcome you with open arms. You just have to make sure your parental figures are involved. That was the nature of it, and I appreciate you sharing that sentiment, Mr. Pollack. I have seen a lot of divisiveness online. Never the intention. I just want to make it clear what the policy committee's intention was, and I know, Mr. Petruno, you're up next, but I did just want to share the intention at the time.
Yes.
Can I respond to him as well before he comes back, or
Yeah.
you want to go in between?
Sure. Let Ms. Palomo add his additional statements.
I know that we know each other quite well, and you know that there's probably nobody here that interacts with the staff and the children and the administration in the district more than myself, with your daughters as well. And from my perspective, this policy is a blatant disregard for our teachers, the way that it is right now, putting them and positioning them between a child and their parent. The decision, what to disclose and how to disclose it to a parent, should never be on the shoulders of a teacher, and for a child to say, I do not want my parent to know, and the teacher to have to bear that responsibility and either break their relationship with the child or with the parent, should not weigh on the wonderful, incredible staff that we have here in Marlboro Township. So I see rescinding this policy as a great notion for all teachers, that this responsibility is no longer cemented in a policy that positions them between a student and their parent. Thank you.
So thank you for responding. I actually 100% agree with everything that you both just said, and I know what the intent of the policy is. And this is a very complicated issue, but how you explained it is one way of how someone could think about that situation. And another way of thinking about that situation would be that the teachers who are hearing the visceral comments about people who are coming into our community, who are making this appear to be a political circus where this has been going on for years at this point, and there is dog whistle language being used that could be seen as antagonistic. It could be seen as hurtful towards some people, not being inclusive to everybody. There's different ways of thinking about this, and I think that perception is really important here. The perception that some of the board members have and some of the community have about this is one thing. You have to also think about it from the other people that are being affected by this, the teachers who have to deal with these situations, the administrators who are responsible for it, and the students, right? So I know no one intentionally was doing anything wrong, and that's why I like having these conversations with you all. But it's there's different ways of thinking about it, and being in a position of leadership is not just thinking about what you guys think, representing the community, obviously, but also thinking about how it affects other people. And I was someone I respect a lot said something to me recently that sometimes you have to weigh with what you believe with what is going to be most effective for the community. And I just think that knowing that there's different ways of thinking about these issues is important when being so steadfast in what you believe. I'm supportive of a board that does what they believe and is speaking from the heart and all of those things, but just we live in a community here where there's a lot of different opinions and ways of thinking about things.
Thank you. Mr. Petruno?
Aldo Petruno, Morganville, New Jersey. Actually, Danielle said pretty much everything I was gonna, so thank you, Danielle. And rather than, thanking you guys for hopefully abolishing this to end the divisiveness, I'm gonna say, hopefully I can thank you guys for ending this because it's the right thing to do. So, that's it.
Okay, anyone else? Nope. Motion to close public comments? Ms. Gandhi, second. Ms. Mendez? That's motion. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for spending the time and sort of sharing your thoughts. For me, it's extremely valuable and important. It's sort of what our whole process is built upon and why we sit here, to be able to sort of listen to what our community says. So thank you, and I appreciate that. The next item on our calendar for tonight, or our agenda tonight, is actually item for policy development and community relations. I'd like to ask Ms. Seward if you would do that item for me.
I'm super emotional about this. I'm sorry.
Take your time.
Policy development and community relation matter. The superintendent of schools submits the following resolution for approval. 1, first reading, policy 5756, transgender students abolished. I so move.
Second, Ms. Mendez. Okay, we're open for discussion before we begin our votes. Any discussions on this matter?
I do. First, this is a big day for everyone here. First and foremost, I'd like to thank our community. In addition to what Mr. Cohen has said, it's our parents that over the last few days have spoke up and demanded this swift action. So thank you. Before I cast my vote today, I want to take a moment to express my gratitude to Valentina and Annette, who are currently serving on the board, as well as Aldo, Christina, and Ashley, who are past members that attended multiple court dates and stood up to protect parental rights. Your unwavering dedication to protecting parental notification from the very beginning has been the driving force in getting us to this point where we can now place our vote. You stood up for the community's needs and served as board members and voices for the community with exemplary commitment. So thank you. As we each make our decision today, I also want to thank all of the parents who have supported our right to parental notification. I urge you to stay engaged and ensure that this is never compromised again. Moving forward, it is essential to stay informed on both state-level policies and local policies that are under review and revision. Policies related to counseling, notification, parental involvement, student records, and parent organizations should always be top of mind to make sure we are never in this situation again. The challenges surrounding 5756 have been one of the most important learning experiences for me, both as a parent and a board member. As I place my vote tonight, I am filled with excitement and optimism, hoping that we are answering the call of our community and restoring our rights to parental notification. Thank you.
So, before, any other discussions, because I know Ms. Palomo shared her thoughts on this, but I thought as we go around for the vote, if a board member would like to share similar sentiments or similar opinions, they can. But we would follow Mr. Caravello's roll call for the vote. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, so the motion before us is to abolish 5756. Is there any other discussions?
You want us to say our piece, you said, when we were voting? Okay.
Yeah, I think
That's fine.
it would help. Okay, so we are now going to, it was moved, it was seconded, we're going to discussion, we're going into roll call. Mr. Caravello?
Dr. Miskowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Palomo?
Yes.
Mrs. Carrero?
Wait, I can read, if I have something to read,
Yeah.
I can read it now? Okay. Okay, so I have a statement. So over the past several months, Policy 5756 has become less about students and more about fueling division. I believe our schools should be a place where every child, no matter what, feels safe, valued, and respected. Removing this policy does not change our commitment to that. New Jersey's anti-discrimination laws and regulations already provide strong protections for all students, including transgender. Our responsibility as board and district, and as a board and a district, is to foster an environment where all students feel supported, not just through policies, but through the culture we create in our schools. One built on trust, understanding, meaningful partnerships with students, importantly parents, and the community. At the same time, we must respect the rights of parents to be involved in their child's lives. Schools should be a place where educators and families work together in the best interest of students. I refuse to let any student be used as a wedge issue. This decision is about fairness, unity, and ensuring that all students feel safe, supported, and understood. Schools should be a welcoming environment for everyone, not just because a policy tells us to, but because it's the right thing to do. So with my statements, I'm voting to abolish 5756.
So to be clear, your vote is yes to abolish?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mrs. Gandhi?
I have a statement prepared as well. We all love our children, and as parents, we have an undeniable right to be fully informed about every aspect of their lives. That is a fact, without exception. As a parent, taxpayer, and now board member, I firmly believe that Policy 5756 should never have been amended the way it was 18 months ago. The board members responsible for that decision lacked the foresight and conviction to take the responsible path, abolishing it outright. Board members should have never let social media grandstanding dictate decisions that impact students, families, and taxpayers. Yet the amendment of Policy 5756 ignited an unnecessary and costly culture war, diverting vital resources away from education and into defending an indefensible illegal policy. It drained thousands of taxpayer dollars, money that should have funded reading, math, and science. Sorry, 1 second. Worse, it stripped our board and community of their rights for 18 months, a reckless decision with lasting consequences. Mistakes, however painful, can offer lessons, but on February 11th, it became clear that some had failed to learn them. One board member, disregarding legal and procedural integrity, attempted to suspend Policy 5756 under the emergency clause in Policy 131, a reckless move that could have plunged the district into further legal jeopardy and jeopardized our ability to vote today. 6 of us rejected that manufactured crisis. An emergency is an imminent threat, an immediate, unavoidable, and dangerous. School shootings, violent crimes, catastrophic storms, those are emergencies. Impatience and political theater are not. Policy 5756 had existed since 2015 without known issues in Marlboro. Waiting a few more weeks to repeal it properly with public notice and due process was not a crisis. To suggest otherwise was at best misleading. We listened to sound legal counsel and relied on common sense. We voted to do this the right way. We also made it crystal clear to our colleagues that we were fully committed to abolishing this policy legally, transparently, and without unnecessary risk to our district. Yet, despite knowing the board was unified on the outcome, one board member chose to mislead the public, launching a baseless smear campaign against those of us who upheld the law. This wasn't about informing the community, it was about undermining the board. That is both dishonest and deeply disappointing. The people of Marlboro elected us to act with integrity, to follow the law, and to make decisions that serve the entire community. That's exactly what 6 of us did on February 11th, and I'm proud of that vote. Leadership isn't about pandering to a vocal few. It's about making the right choices for the greater good. I'm grateful for the new leadership on this board and for the decision to move this motion forward swiftly, collaboratively, and correctly. So today, I vote yes to abolish Policy 5756, not just because it should never have existed, but because doing so the right way affirms our commitment to responsible governance. This is the first of many sound decisions this board will make. Together, we will continue to put students, families, educators, and taxpayers first. So again, my vote is yes to abolish.
Thank you.
Mr. Hyatt?
Yes. I just want to reiterate 2 things, and sorry, I have a little bit of a cold. I think a lot of what was said here tonight played into factoring in my decision and in my vote. I think Mrs. Woodruff, and sorry, I forgot your name, right? Is that right? Thank you. There are safeguards in place. That makes me confident in voting to rescind this policy, frankly. I think what Mr. Pollack said in terms of the vision it's brought to our community, I would like to see that abolished along with the policy. I think more importantly, the final thing I'll say is without this policy, without all this back and forth, I hope we can focus on the needs of our administration, our teachers, our students and parents, most importantly, and our community and broad. That's really the focus I think we should have here, and I hope by us voting to rescind this policy, we can get back to those basics. So my vote is to yes, abolish the policy.
Thank you.
Mr. Olonsky?
Hi. Just going to quickly thank everybody that spoke tonight, and thank my fellow board members for taking the time to be here tonight so we can get this moved along and buttoned up hopefully by the end of the month. With that, my vote is yes.
Thank you, Mr. Lonsley.
Mrs. Mendez?
I have a statement that I had written. Since June of 23, our Board of Education, we worked to ensure that our policies align with our commitment to keeping families involved in their children's education. As a K-8 school district, we believe that parental involvement is paramount, which was the guiding principle behind our modification of Policy 5756, which required parental notification. Sorry about that. Given the young ages of our students, we felt this amendment was necessary to maintain open communication and a strong support system between families and schools. Following this policy change, our board, along with 2 neighboring districts, as we know, was sued by the governor and the attorney general, alleging that our actions violated the rights of a particular group of students. For quite some time, we were engaged in legal proceedings with little progress. However, we have always maintained that involving families in key decisions affecting their children is not a violation of rights, but rather a fundamental aspect of ensuring their well-being and support. I am grateful for the unwavering support of our community and all those who stood by us throughout this process. And I'm looking forward to the decision to move forward in the best interests of our students and families. And I do just want to thank the countless community members. I want to thank past and current board members. I want to thank, we spent a lot of time, so I want to thank those board members that we were with in the courthouse that day and that stood behind the policy change. So I want to thank Mrs. Rosato, Mrs. Amster, Mr. Petruno, Mrs. McCormack, Ms. Belomo, Ms. Seward, Mr. Lewandowski. I want to thank, and obviously the community members and any staff or administration I know that was supportive of this policy and the changes. And again, I'm just looking forward to moving forward with abolishing it. So again, thank you, and I appreciate the years that we've spent working through this. And so my vote is yes.
Thank you.
Mrs. Seward?
My vote is yes to the abolishment of 5756. I just also feel the need to thank Mr. Ballone, our superintendent, who was very supportive in the pioneering of bringing attention to this policy when previous administration literally told me at that podium, you don't need to worry about that. So I'm so glad that we all continued to worry about it, because we really brought attention to a topic, not just for our neighboring towns, but almost nationally. So even though it brought on some legal ramifications, I just want to make it clear that we were misinformed that this policy was a mandated policy, that we couldn't abolish it with the information that we were given 18 months ago. If we had the correct information and that little M wasn't on top of the alert from our policy writing company, we would have moved forward with abolishing. So I just want to make sure that that information was clear, that we didn't know that this was even an option. We thought that this was a mandated policy. I hope to never see the words "parents need not be notified" ever again in any of the policies that our district amends or changes. I also just want to thank the parents that I sat shoulder to shoulder with for so many meetings when we were first talking about this policy. I think that our voices were heard, and most importantly, I think that we all came from a place of love and concern and community and family and all of the values that make Marlboro great, even if you read some not flattering things on social media. Hopefully we take a turn and we can put an end to the fake profiles bashing people and the vitriol conversations that are going on and the assumptions that are being made, because at the end of the day, this is a volunteer position. And we're all here because we want to be, and we're all here because we have the best interests of the children. So thank you to board members, past, present, and future, and hopefully this sets forth a new expectation for how we want our schools to be run. So thank you.
And just to be clear, that was a yes.
Yes, I would like to say hell yes, but I'll get in trouble by my parents for that. So hell yes to abolishing 5756.
Thank you.
And Mr. Cohen?
So I've always been a firm believer that people can arrive at a unilateral decision even if they come at it from different perspectives or different paths. And tonight is a great example of exactly how this board has arrived at a unified decision, but coming at it from different perspectives. So with that, I want to commend the board, and I want to commend our community for sharing their perspectives, sharing their views, and advocating for something that they felt very strongly for. At the end of the day, without even me casting my vote yet, you all know what the count is, right? Which is exactly where I'm going to sit, which is my vote. It will be yes to abolish this policy. I will say, just in final, that this is the right decision. I've said this for quite some time, that we did not need this policy. For whatever reasons I have for that, but that's how I felt. So I am glad that the board has had a unified decision on this. I'm glad that we are one step closer to actually abolishing 5756. And with that, I believe, Mr. Caravello, I can say that we have a unanimous vote. Right?
Yes. Yep. 9-0.
It's a 9-0 vote. The next steps for this will be to actually have our second read for this policy to officially be abolished. pursuant to our board policies on our meeting on February 25th, where at that meeting this will be on the agenda for second read, and we will have one more vote. So with that, I want to thank everyone for, you know, their honesties, their opinions, their feelings, and expressing them tonight. But we have done what we had to do as far as tonight's meeting. The next item on our agenda is actually one other round of public comments. If anyone wants to sort of speak, they're more than welcome to come up. So do we have anyone on the list for a second round?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Nirav Kadakia, Morganville, New Jersey. First and foremost, I want to thank the board for carefully reviewing all the options and making a well-informed decision regarding 5756. I'm really glad it was not a hasty choice, but one that you guys made thoroughly weighing all considerations and without further impacting taxpayers. So this decision that you've made, I think, takes us to the next phase in life, right? Because regardless of where we stand, you know, our shared priorities remain protecting our children, upholding parental rights. And I am really, really thrilled that we can now move on and now focus on what's important in this school district. That's education and making sure that our children have the tools necessary to succeed and to be safe. I want Marlboro, and one of the reasons why I moved to Marlboro, as I'm sure many people know, is because of the education. When you Google Marlboro MTPS, I'm hoping now we don't see articles about 5756, and we see articles about how wonderful this community is and how wonderful our school district is. So thank you for voting. Thank you for abolishing this, and I'm hoping we can now move forward and not be as divisive as we were over the past 2 years. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Kadakia. Anyone else?
Aldo Petruno, Morganville, New Jersey. First off, thank you. This has been 18 months in the making, and I'm glad it's finally behind us. You guys almost made it a full meeting without any back and forth, but Aditi just couldn't keep it to herself. So let me just clarify real quick. Aditi, the policy was amended because when the policy vendor sent it to us, we were told it was mandatory, so we couldn't abolish it. It wasn't until we were in court that it became clear it could be abolished, first off. Second off, thank you, Ms. Palomo, for your emergency motion at the last meeting, because in the last 2 weeks, had anything happened in these schools, this district and this board would have been liable. So to say it wasn't an emergency is actually kind of ridiculous, and you should be ashamed of yourself. We used the emergency clause on 2 other occasions. One was for FMLA, and the other was for sick leave, I believe. And you're going to tell me parental notification that we were in a lawsuit for 18 months isn't an emergency? Give me a break. Thank you, Ms. Palomo. Thank you to the board. Good night.
I was hoping someone would say my name so I could have a chance to respond. I would like to say that tonight is so monumental to so many people that I'm not going to take this opportunity to rebut the ridiculous claims that were made against me. But I am going to say, if it was the motion that was made, no, let me rephrase that. Because of the motion that was made, I am proud that we have moved to abolish 5756. And if it was the outcry of the community after the motion that I made that got us here tonight at an emergency meeting, then so be it. Pat yourself on the back, Mrs. Gandhi. We got the result we wanted. Thank you.
I stand by my statement, and I think everybody here would agree that this was always the intent. And that was an emergency for us to risk potential litigation, anything against the board. So I think, again, I'm going to say I commend board leadership for thinking this through, not acting on emotion, and just doing what you all were elected to do. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Finney?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for protecting the teachers and some of the comments that were made. And I wanted to respond to this gentleman, Mr. Pollack. My daughter it was in a middle school, and there were 3 children that wanted to use different pronouns than they were. I work in a high school, and so that's a little different than where you're at. But I want to say, about a year and a half ago, we had training, professional development training on this, where there were 5 students, and I'm not going to say where I work, but who were using different pronouns, and I'm assuming some of them may have been on hormones. Anyway, I went and I spoke to another teacher about this, that I was not going to use the pronouns, and she said, well, that's not your business. You need to, that's not your business, leave that to the counselors and other professionals. The following year, I did get a student who was asking me to use different pronouns, and I had a private conversation with her, and I said, I'm going to try my best to call you by your first and last name. And if I don't, it's because I feel that it's damaging, and there are people detransitioning, and it might hurt you, and I want to do the right thing and tell you the truth. And I said, you're a wonderful student, you're bright, and all these other things that I need to say, because she was. But I never had a problem. I said, I'm not trying to make an issue, but this is what I had to go through as a teacher. And then I also spoke to a counselor, not a guidance counselor, and told her my feelings on it, someone I trusted, and she said, you might lose your job. And I said, well, so be it, because I need to tell the truth. I can't live with myself leading someone down this path to go affirming them, and to then they take the next step and the next step, and then they do something that they can't, that they regret. So there are situations, I mean, you guys may have the best teachers in the world, but you know, it is against the law, and people can get in trouble. And I see other schools, if it's happening right in our neighborhood, and I see it all the time, it's not to say that it wouldn't happen in the future. And so I just thank you for protecting the teachers who are not saying anything. Some people are retiring because they don't want to deal with these things. And I just commend you for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Finney?
Hi, good evening again. I don't want to belabor the meeting, but I just wanted to share with you that when I came to New Jersey in 2007, I moved to Marlboro, and I was stationed on the Naval Weapons Station, Earl there as the officer in charge of the Munitions Command, and loved Marlboro. And so I was a resident for several years, and now I am just a stone's throw away in Colts Neck. But you know, have some good friends in Marlboro, and this is a great community. I feel it's like I feel the same way about Colts Neck. We're you know, just two peas in a pod. But the other thing I wanted to just say is I really, really appreciate your service to this community, and it was, you know, mentioned, I think, by someone that, you know, it's not a paid position, and it's challenging, especially over these last few years. And I just want to tell you that I, for one, have an idea of what that commitment is through several friendships and from being involved in my township now in Colts Neck. So thank you again for all your hard work and for being willing to serve the community for our kids. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Finney, and thank you for recognizing the service of the board, but also thank you for your service. Ms. Woodruff?
Hi, Jennifer Woodruff again. I want to repeat what Dan just said. I know this can be a thankless job, and you put a lot of hours and time in, and I know you're away from your families, you spend a lot of hours here, and probably meetings outside, and we really appreciate what you do. It's a very professional group. But I do have a question. It seems like this policy is abolished, but there's a second vote. How does that work? What exactly does that mean? I'm a little confused.
So I can explain it, but I will also look to our attorney to sort of correct me if I misstated. But our policies, policy 131, requires that we have the motion on an agenda, and then it can be abolished at the subsequent meeting. So we have the motion on the agenda tonight, and then it will be added to our agenda for the February 25th meeting, which is next Tuesday, for a final vote of the board to abolish the policy.
And there'll be another meeting like this?
There'll be a regular meeting next Tuesday that's already been planned. This item will be added to that agenda so that we can have another vote.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else for, yes?
Good evening. Thank you. Scott's here. Excuse me. Let me go back. Thank you. My name is Kim Lindley. I'm a former special education teacher. I'm from Manalapan. And I'm just so happy I made the meeting on time, that you got the right vote. So I want to start off with what I wrote. So if it sounds redundant, I'm sorry, but you got the great answer. So my name is Kim Lindley, and I reside in Manalapan, New Jersey. I am a mom and a former special education teacher. Thank you for your time, effort, and most of all, for having the courage to do what is right for what the students of your district. Receiving policy 5756. Policy 5756 is a suggested policy and not mandated by law. I thank you for standing up for what is the best interest of your students, also for supporting one of the strongest relationships a student will have, the teacher and the parent relationship. The ruling in favor of policy 5756 is evidence that removing this policy is morally and legally correct. Also, this ruling supports that you have done what was the right thing to do. Also, the teacher-parent relation plays a paramount role in the students' lives. Communication and trust are key elements between teachers and parents. Students have shown how well students perform when communication lines are opened and are with parents. One of the studies is the long-term impact, academic success, and beyond the provides of parental involvement is the name of the article. There's less absenteeism, increased homework completion, less classroom management problems, more time devoted to teaching, better peer relationships, and better decision-making skills for the when parents are involved. Another thing that I discovered during this policy 5756 is the brain. How can we have a child who's 5 make complex decisions when at 13 the prefrontal cortex is involved? How in the world can you just put all these complex decisions, they don't know the consequences, and your personality, your identity, all forms at 13. The full brain is not developed till like 30 years old. I have a 26 and 29 who drive me nuts. They still don't know what they're doing. So I just am so proud and happy that you guys are on the right track. And for teachers everywhere, thank you so much. Because when we were teaching, I loved my job. The kids were my kids from 9 to 3. Mine were mine. So I thank you for your time and your efforts, and thank you for the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Second round of public comments. Okay, can I have a motion to close public comments? Ms. Mendez, a second. Dr. Miskowitz, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Abstained? Public comments is closed. I've been informed by our attorney that we have no additional matters of attorney-client privilege to require us for executive session, so we will not be going into executive session this evening. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Ms. Gandhi, a second. Ms. Seward, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Abstained? Have a good night, everyone. Thank you very much for coming out this evening.